All right, we are back as promised for episode 6 of the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast 2024-25 NHL season. We are going to get going here in just a second. We're just starting our posts here on Facebook, and then we will go ahead. But yeah, so we're going to talk today about a couple things. Our team's weeks, obviously, what I had mentioned as well in my posts that I was going to talk about before Dad gets into his little introductions and shout-outs is a big day today for the Penguins in general. There's been a lot of commotion and such going on today, and it's been a pretty busy day as far as that goes. And then as well, just some of the things going on around the league, as well as some cool Hall of Fame inductions that happened over the weekend in Toronto. But we'll go ahead and have you do your shout-outs and such before we get started.
That's right. So again,
as always, I remember this time.
As always, very good. We are the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast. We've been doing this now our first full season. We started last half season. And this year we are very thankful to be on the Refocused Radio Network with Shemaya Reed. And along with us on the Refocused Radio Network, you'll be able to get the YouTube feed of this tomorrow. We're, of course, on Facebook Live right now. Shemaya Reed is the guy for the Refocused Radio Network. He has his own podcast, I Am Refocused Radio. And then the other one I want to shout out to is Rudy Campos Jr., our good
Sweep
friend.
the League, yeah.
Sweep the League. Great.
Covers every other sport but hockey.
Yeah.
His coverage is quite outstanding. So.
It is. Like, he has some great guests on. Derek Gervin is a regular on it. A UT. He was just put into the UTSA Hall of Fame. And so he covers, he cover right now, college football, college basketball, the NBA, the NFL, which he's got a problem. He, for the first time,
picked
the Cardinals to win. And I told him the last 4 weeks, pick the Cardinals. He
takes care of the heavy load, and we just take the extra 20% for the hockey stuff. But he, I give him credit. He tries to get educated when he can to learn, and hopefully we can do a little collaboration here at some point, like we did last year, because that was pretty fun.
It'll be fun. I always love going on.
I don't mind. Rudy, if you want to talk some NFL football, I don't mind talking.
Yeah, because Carson can talk NFL football too. He's got a pretty good fan. How's your fantasy league corner?
Yeah, I'm 7-3. My fantasy
7-3. So we're going to start the podcast, and as we normally do, as Carson said, we'll start with the week that was, but we have to start, Carson, with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It wasn't the greatest of weeks, and especially the last game, but some breaking news just prior to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll start with the breaking news, I guess, and go into the show part. The Penguins just traded Lars Eller to the Washington Capitals about 25 minutes ago while I was on the way here. Traded him to Washington in exchange for a 2025 third round selection, and I want to say it's a 2027 fifth round selection. Eller, a guy we've had now, this is his second season. Or is it third season?
I think it's third season.
I think it's his third season with us, and third line center was such a big piece of this team. I felt like he was a really consistent, and honestly the most consistent player on the roster. He played the same every night, and while his point production wasn't very outstanding, I mean, his presence on the team was enough to be said, and he's one of those guys that's a consummate pro. I don't think anybody could really say anything bad about him. He plays the game a clean way, and he's always ready. He's had some epic moments on this team, scoring some big goals. And it's funny, out of all the games I've been to see the Penguins play, he's the guy that scored the most when I've watched him. And he's one of those guys I'm definitely going to miss, but for a good reason. They get rid of him because they need to build some draft capital, and I'll get into why here in my week that was. But that's breaking news. The Penguins again trade Lars Eller to their rival Washington Capitals for 2 draft picks. A guy that was probably going to leave after this year with his contract expiring, so at least you get something for him. But it's definitely something that still hurts to see, because I really liked watching him play. But he's towards the tail end of his career anyways, and he gets to go back where he won a Stanley Cup. So the benefit for him, wish him the best of luck. But now going to the week that was, and a bad week for many reasons. Record-wise wasn't, I guess, the worst it could have been. We were 1-2-1, so we got points in 2 out of the 4 games. But The last game made it just explosion here, if you want to call it. We start out last Tuesday on the island and on Long Island to play the Islanders, and a game the Penguins have a multi-goal lead and they blow it and lose in a shootout, so they get a point. But and I did my post game, I was pretty frustrated because this is, I believe, the fifth game, and that was the fifth game already this year. The Penguins have blown a multiple goal lead, or maybe sixth game, because there have been a couple where they won, but they blew a multi-goal lead and lost the game. I think this was the fifth game or fourth game the Penguins have blown a multi-goal lead and then lost, and that was the first game they got a point in. They did it in Winnipeg when I was there. They did it in Vancouver when I was there. They did it against Minnesota the week beforehand and lost, and then they did it against the Islanders and got beaten in a shootout, so not a good start. But you'll take the point, but again, a game they should have had. They were up 3-1 with less than 10 minutes, and they let in 2 goals like that, which seems to be the theme as well, that once one goes in, the next one's right after. But you shake off that game and you move on to the next one, which was Friday night showdown, or was it Thursday night showdown with the Carolina Hurricanes, and doubled them in shots, lost 5-1. Carolina was ready they didn't, honestly, watching them play, they didn't play all that awesome, but it doesn't matter. You score 5 goals. I mean, a team that good's going to score them like crazy, and they did, and we couldn't stop anything. That was the best game I think I've seen us play against the Hurricanes, and it didn't matter. We got double the shots, 5-1 loss. And that's a team we have had the bugaboo. We beat them once last year, but that's one of those teams we just can't seem to shake and beat. It is just it's just a mystery, but they just can't. It's like free points for Carolina. And then you follow that up playing a tough game in Washington, a team that's been rolling, and they beat them in Washington. So it's always sweet to see your team beat a rival team, especially on their home ice. But that's the first good team, if you want to say, the Penguins have beaten all year, a team that's in a playoff spot right now. They beat them 4-2. Contributions from all lines, because every line in this game had a goal or was contributing to a goal. So nice to see them win that one. But the happiness of that game quickly goes away last night in Dallas. One of the best, or not best, one of the probably the worst period in the franchise history in Pittsburgh on Monday against Dallas. The Penguins go down 6-0 in the first period. They let in 6 goals on 12 shots in that first period, and it was unbelievable to watch. I couldn't believe it. I literally had my hand on my head like this on my desk. I couldn't believe it, what I was watching. Then I left after the first to go to the gym because I did the same thing against Carolina, because that game's so far gone already. This team doesn't have that ability to come back in that kind of game, but it was so sad to see that. They end up losing 7-1. And that game marked a very dark turning point that I believe is going to begin. There are a lot of questions after this game going around for the Penguins. The biggest one is coaching, like I've said multiple times, and the fan base of this team can agree. There needs to be a coaching change for a head coach. Mike Sullivan's an awesome hockey coach. He definitely could find a job somewhere else, no doubt. He's such a smart hockey mind. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, 2016-17, but he's been with this team already 9 years. The message is not being received. The team is not on the same wavelength. That was a change I was hoping for to happen. Doesn't appear that's going to happen. There's some kind of disconnect between that and the management ownership thinking that he's the right guy for the job. Sad for the fans, because number one, for last night's game, some people in there spending a few $100 to go watch the Penguins, parking, ticket, concessions, whatever. And you see that kind of game. You see them get blown out at home, 6-0 in the first period. Ugly scene there. And it doesn't appear they're going to do anything with that, which makes me really upset, because I think on paper this roster is way better than last year, but they're getting blown out all the time. I really think it's just a disconnect from the head coaching. But you know what? It doesn't look like that's what they're going to do. And it is what it is. I'm still going to support the team, watch the team, but I don't think that's the right move. I think they need to get a new voice back there and get them excited. You have the last years of the legacy careers of Letang, Crosby, and Malkin on your team. This team can't rebuild like that. They're not going to be able to, because they promised Sid when he re-signed before the season that they were going to be better than last year. That was the promise made by management and ownership, that the Penguins would be a better hockey team than the one that missed the playoffs by 2 points or 3 points last year. So far, we're not seeing that. We're seeing a team that's way down in the dumps, doesn't have any confidence, can't beat a good team. And if they keep this up, we'll be lucky to get 70, 75 points, which is not better. And instead of any kind of coaching changes being made, the message was delivered earlier today in a press conference from general manager and president of hockey operations, Kyle Dubas, saying that every player on this team is available for trade besides Sid. Every player.
Yeah, I saw that.
So what does that mean? I don't know. Again, they can't sell everybody because they promised him a better team, but you're still saying that those big guns you have are available. So you get rid of guys like Raquel, Patterson, possibly, what do you have? I mean, you're going to have to use your money to get players because you have to make this team, you have to fulfill your promise.
Yeah. Because I don't know. That statement, like, I totally disagree. And I agree with you. Sullivan change needs to be happening behind the bench.
And he's a great coach.
Yeah.
I think the message has been kind of taken wrong by other fans of this team that he's not a good coach. He is a fantastic coach. Any other team that could get him would be lucky to get him because he is very smart and he knows the game and he's won 2 cups. But it's like any other sport, any other anything. Too much of something is a bad thing. Too much of the same message is a bad thing. Too much of his tenure is a bad thing. He hasn't won a playoff series since 2018 when we got eliminated by the Washington Capitals in the second round. There has been no playoff victory in the series at all. It's just everybody's time expires. There's plenty of great coaches that get fired. Washington did it. They got rid of Laviolette, a coach that I feel like is a good coach. They fired him. They got better. You guys getting rid of Woodcroft after having a great team, fire him. Yeah. Even Toronto, a team, I know that doesn't have playoff success, but has a really good hockey team, fire their head coach. A lot of these teams that win Stanley Cups, and I've already said the Penguins don't have the capabilities to win the cup, but a coaching change sparks it.
Yeah.
Literally the last 2 out of the last 3 Penguin Cups have come after a coaching change midway through the year. That sparks some kind of enthusiasm in the team and the ability to be like, look, we got to play. We got to win. No excuses. And it's easier to change up the coaching than the players. I understand why Dubas is getting rid of players, draft capital, make this team better in the future. But when you've promised your legacy number 1 player, a player that's going to be top 5 in this league all time, probably when he retires, you've promised him something. You have to fulfill that promise. And so I'm hoping that he can fulfill that promise and get this team where they should be, which I believe is at least a playoff run, because I think they are more than capable. They have the guys on the roster to do it. But how are they going to do it? I don't know. Sad day to be a Penguin fan for sure. You don't want to see that, but you still got to look forward to the rest of the season. Still plenty of games and, try to get all the points you can and still to have a great season from your top guys. But yesterday just was a not good day, and today has been not a good day as far as that goes for the team because you don't know what to expect now with that conference. Who's going to go? Who's going to come in if we get anybody? It's unclear what's going to go on, but I'm hoping that they can fulfill that promise and make this team better because that's what should happen.
And they got to do something quick, one way or the other. They got to do something quick.
Like I said in my post game last night, 65 games may sound like a lot of games, but when you're behind, it's not because you still got to prey on other teams not doing well.
Yeah.
And really, to be honest, the Penguins aren't that far behind. I mean, they're maybe 6-7 points behind, but they can make that up. And last year, again, a team that had a 2% chance of making the playoffs 3.5, 4 weeks before they started, barely missed it.
Yeah.
Now, how do you hold up to the promise? That's the big question. How do you hold up to your promise that you made to your team, to your captain, to your fans? When that gets out to the public, it gets out to your fans. Your fans expect it, and we've been blessed with great hockey teams, but with the guys you have there, you can't tank, you can't rebuild until they're gone. Once they're gone, you can start the full rebuild, but you can't with them there. You keep them there because they want a chance. That's why they're there. They wouldn't stay there to be a lottery team. They want to go to the playoffs. If they wanted to if they knew they were going to tank, those guys would have gone to different teams to try to win.
Yeah.
But they're here because they've been given an opportunity and they've been given a promise, if you want to call it, that this team will be built to have a chance to make the playoffs. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I think so too. And like you mentioned, the Woodcroft last year was after the 2-9-1 start. It was actually a year ago today or yesterday, one of the 2 days that they did that, and they brought in Chris Knobloch, a relative unknown, and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final and they came back, but it was a struggle all year for the Oilers. So I just think something has to be done, and I'm always saying, well, you know what, the coach is always got to be is the one to go because you're not going to get rid of 20 players. But I think it would do the Penguins a great boost in the locker room if they had somebody different literally calling the shots back behind the bench.
And in no way is that an easy move to do that because the guys love him. They do. He's been a big part of their lives, not just in the game, but as far as he's like a figure to them, like a parental figure. He's guiding them every day at practice, in a game. Some of these guys for 9 years. That's not an easy decision to make. They all love him. They all like him. They all like being around him. But for the purpose of the team, you have to. You have to just you have to make that tough call. And I've already given my displeasure to with the ownership group. I think they're an absolute joke. As far as I feel like they're not involved with the team. Like they don't do anything for them. I don't see them addressing any kind of media. I don't see them showing up to the games or them putting them on the cameras that they're at the game. It doesn't seem like that they're doing anything. They're just watching this whole operation just sink and they're getting paid. You look at the teams they own. I believe they own, is it Madrid? I don't know who. I think Real Madrid, this Fenway Sports Group, and then the Red Sox. The Red Sox haven't been very good for a little bit. And they're watching those teams just be bad, and they're not doing anything to fix it. You got to, at the end of the day, the fans are paying you. They're going to the games. You're getting revenue off of that. You're getting paid.
Yeah.
Your fans deserve a better product than that. Every team's going to go through their dry spells. I get it. You look at the lower level teams. They still have a way to be exciting for their fans. San Jose, Anaheim, Columbus. They're giving their fans something to be excited about, and they're trying stuff. Columbus gets a new coach this year. These teams are trying stuff. The Penguins aren't. They're not doing anything. They're getting rid of players. They're not looking at the coaching staff thinking, you know what, it's just time. And it is. It is more than time. But it's up to when they want to do it. Until then, still got to support the team, watch the team, and just pray for their success because I still want them to do well. And there's the capability there. But, whatever it takes. If it takes player-only meetings, which they had one today, they felt horrible for the fans because they had to watch that. But there was a players meeting today addressing, and they're hungry to try to go out there and get some wins. They have the capability this week to pull at 500 if they win the rest of the games this week, which would be fantastic. But that's the big change that needs to happen here. But it's definitely just that turning point of the darker days right now, just because it looks like it's just going to be a fire sale of players and see if they can just get some people to fill spots. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But in the coming days, there'll probably be more trades and deals made. I imagine the Penguins are going to try to boost up their draft capital, but at the same time, still try to hold up their promise of being a competing team to make a playoff run.
I want to say thank you to Thomas Brown's joining us tonight. And
Hi,
you
Thomas.
Can join us too here. We're going to be live here on Facebook for a little bit. No, I do. You give me that back.
But that's my little rant and rave here, but it was much needed because that was the talk of the league today, I think, was what the Penguins were going to do.
So what have the Penguins got coming up this week?
So the Penguins play a big game tomorrow against Detroit, which I'm excited for that game. A TV game coming off of getting thumped by Dallas. What kind of response do you have? And who's going to be goalie? That's the big question too, because Blum gets pulled last night. Ned doesn't do very good. Ned either. You got Jari now back. You got a 3-goalie rotation who you wonder who's going to play. That's a big game though. You got to win that one for sure. And that's a team they've beaten. And then they have a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. Friday in Columbus and Saturday against San Jose. So very winnable games here. And the Penguins, again, can pull at 500. But I think the big question, the biggest game out of all of them is tomorrow, because how do you respond after this, after these last 24 or so hours? How does this team respond? Ignore the noise and just play. How do they play? And how does Detroit play? Do they feed off of that? Do they try to get in their minds? We don't know. But tomorrow is going to be a big test for sure.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. Something's got to be done, and it's got to be done quick in Pittsburgh.
And you know what? I know I'm taking up a lot of our time, but it's important. This team has been not doomed, but screwed since Hextall started here, because he made a lot of bad moves that really handicapped this team. He traded McCann to Toronto before the expansion to protect Kapanen and Carter at the expansion. A guy that went to Seattle and scored 40. And a young guy. He was in his 20s. Now he's in his, I think, early 30s. That's a guy we miss. Brandon Tanev's a guy we miss that we don't have anymore. John Marino, a young righty defenseman, traded him to New Jersey. We miss him a lot. Mike Matheson's another guy we had that we traded for Jeff Petrie. All the guys, all of the players that Hextall got during his tenure are not here anymore. Yep. That tells you something.
Yep. Ron Hextall, a great goaltender for the Philadelphia Flyers. Lousy general manager.
A Flyer. I think one of the worst general managers of all time. If you look at it, I think, you know what? He was a Flyer at heart, I think. And I truly think that he didn't care whether the Penguins were good or bad. These deals he made, even to a Joe Schmo like me, didn't make any sense. But if we still had those guys that we got rid of, this is a team that 3 years ago won the division. When the COVID, like after the COVID year, it was the East Division at the time. They had the West, East, North, and South. We won that division by a lot, and now we're at the bottom. Yeah, it
doesn't make any sense, but.
It just pisses me off.
Something to do. So I knew Carson needed to rant, and so I
love my team. I'm going to watch these games. I'm going to pray for them to win, but man, they just got to do something.
It hurts. That was me last year at this time. It's like, are you kidding me? How can I watch this team?
It's my karma for making fun of you all these years.
Yeah, that's right.
But the older you get, you realize that a lot more goes into it. But you look at it too. Simplicity, what you think should happen. But again, they know more than me. They're around there more than me, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, it's not like they couldn't use some of your advice.
Oh, if they could hire me.
Yeah, they hire assistant GM. I tell you what. So for the Edmonton Oilers, they went 1-1. They only had 2 games since we were on the air last Tuesday. The first game was the tough one at home against Vegas.
That was a
heartbreaker because the Oilers had control of that game. They were up 2-1 midway through the third period. They gave up the tying goal, and then we're going down to the last 2 minutes. Last minute, you're thinking, okay, we're going to go in overtime, and then a defensive lapse where it wasn't. And I think there was a
miscommunication. It was Bush. I think they both collapsed on the entry. That's exactly what I told you. They both collapsed on the entry. And I mean, no matter who the guy is, these are NHL caliber players. You don't leave any NHL caliber player open coming down the slot.
There were 4 guys watching one guy in the corner, and it was an easy goal to put him ahead 3-2, and then they got an empty netter. The winning goal was just a little over a minute left.
Yeah, like 55 seconds.
So that was a heartbreak. And I came on to my post game, and I was just like, it was probably the most.
It hurts when you're that close, even just to a point. A point is better than none. Yeah. Even if you lose an OT, you get a point. Move on. But to get no points and be that close,
and we would have still beating Vegas would have still been perfect in the division. But it didn't happen. So the next game went on was Saturday, which was so much better. It was in Vancouver. So you're talking about a rematch of the second round, which was great. It went 7 games. And then this one, it was so funny because it was very similar. It was the Oilers scored 2 goals in about a minute and something. Then Vancouver scored 2 goals.
That gave me bad flashbacks. Yeah, watching them score that
Vancouver
quick.
Scored 2 goals in about a minute or so. Yeah. And then in the third period, the Oilers scored 4 goals in 4 minutes.
Connor Brown's already above his goal total from last year.
Yeah, exactly. And it was great because you're right. In that game, which the Oilers won 7-3, 12 different Oilers got a point, and this is the second time that 11 or more players have had a point in a game.
We talk about things like the others. Always. No matter what team, the others have to be a key. All the Stanley Cup champions of the past, present, and future have great depth. Yeah. And this Oilers team looks like they have great depth, and a lot of the guys are getting involved. My favorite Oiler on this team, Janmark, had a great game. But from lines 1 to 4, everybody's contributing, which is great. Even the defense pairings are contributing. Mm-hmm. That's the key to success.
Janmark, as you mentioned, had 3 assists in that game. I love that guy. Connor McDavid goal and 2 assists. Draisaitl had a goal and an assist. And as you mentioned, Connor Brown had 2 goals. Mm-hmm. Had a shot.
Hey, he's looking really good. He's proving why they kept him around and re-signed him. And I think his role, we've talked about, fits way better in the bottom than it does the top. He had too much pressure, I think, on him being put on McDavid's line last year. Mm-hmm. He fits perfectly on that bottom pair. Yeah, perfect.
And that, and you've got Corey Perry, who's really making some noise on that. I think they got him on third line.
Underrated skill.
He's making some noise. The defense, Kulak, he's already got 4 goals this year. I think that's more than he had all last year.
I think the biggest question mark, even outside of Stu, because he's been shaky, but still is Bouchard.
Mm-hmm.
Got to pick up his defensive game, but that's something that you can improve on. But that's definitely the biggest concern, is he just has not been overall hasn't been very good this year.
No, his defense, and he's got right now the most blocked shots in the NHL, which I guess he's shooting, but he's getting a lot of his shots blocked now, like they weren't happening last year. Now you talk about the Oilers' defense. I'm gonna actually give some praise to our boy, Nursey boy.
Yeah, he
has been so much better, especially in the defensive end.
I think he took that criticism to heart, because last year he was a big dark spot for this team, and he's been better. Now, still way overpaid. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but he has been way better, and he's at least proved why he's a mainstay in this lineup, and that he can be trusted. He just needs to continue that. And I think if Bouch can get that, and that's something you can correct with Bouchard, right? He's a skilled player. That's something that can be corrected. This team's going to be just fine. After a rocky start, they're back at 500. I mean, this team's going to be rolling again. Yeah. And that's a big game. Vancouver, especially giving up 2 quick ones like that to make it a 1-goal game for them or for y'all. Yeah. That's not an easy spot, because all the momentum's against you guys. Yeah. And then you come out in Vancouver, in the third, and a arena that's very loud and hard to win in. And you prove, like, we're here.
Yeah, like the crowd towards the end of the game was all you could hear were the Oiler fans, and all the Vancouver fans took off, which was kind of surprising. Brent Kulak is really taking. I've
always liked Brent Kulak.
He's really coming on as a leader on the blue line, along with Matthias.
Another guy we love.
I love Matthias Ekholm. All 4 lines, like Carson said, are playing absolutely great. And then everyone, I think you keep that the lineup that they have. Yeah. You can throw in that power lineup of 97, 29, and 18 every once in a while when you need it, but you don't have to rely on that. And I think you go with the 3 big centers of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nuge.
This team is a lot more balanced like that, and I think it just makes lines 1 through 4 all the more powerful. So I think you leave it that way. The only times you'll really need to do that in desperate times, like after a kill. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. On the power play, yes. 6 on 5, absolutely. But other than that, you won't need to do that.
Now, the penalty kill and power play still need a lot of work. That's the one area I think that the Oilers really have to work on. But the fact that y'all are
still winning games like that,
if
you can just improve upon that, then
we're beating teams 5 on 5.
Yeah, so that's important. 5 on 5 is a lot more prevalent.
So you know what? The start was 0-3. Now they're 7-4-1, as Carson mentioned. As we going into the game tonight against the New York Islanders, which will start at about 8:00 Central Time.
Win that game.
Yes, we will try. The Oilers are at 500 at 7-7-1. They got, again, Islanders tonight, Nashville at home on Thursday, and then they go to Toronto for a Hockey Night in Canada game. It's going to be
we got Hockey Night in Canada against San Jose. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, it's at 9:00. This one's at 6:00.
That's at 6:00. I'm just being funny.
I know you're being funny. So that's what the Oilers have got coming up here before we get to our next podcast. Now, in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets,
I can't believe,
are the only team in the National Hockey League history to win 14 of their first 15 games.
It is remarkable. That city number 1 deserves it, because we mentioned it plenty of times on the show. Winnipeg is by population the smallest city in the NHL, smallest arena in the NHL, one of the best fan bases in the NHL. Mm-hmm. They've got probably the best goalie in the NHL on their team. This is a team that, outside of a couple big guys like Scheifele, Ehlers, and Connor, don't have any big star players.
No, they don't.
They're just all buying in, and they're scoring a lot. Actually, they're scoring a lot of goals, but they're all buying into the mission just to win. And they're getting great goaltending from Hellebuck. They're even Comrie, their backup, has been playing well when he's been playing. They're all together just playing great. Now, the one thing I worry about is how much are you exhausting right now in the regular season. But again, this is a Winnipeg team to be very scared of, because defensively they're so sharp, and goaltending, it's hard to score on them. They're scoring a lot of goals. Definitely a team to be feared in the NHL, but what a historic start. And you hope to see it keep going. But they just got to keep playing this way. And Even other teams are really rolling right now. Carolina's rolling. They've won a lot of road games. They swept the Western trip. Then they beat Vegas at home yesterday in Vegas. Now, the one thing I will mention that's actually pretty interesting, I heard in the Carolina game the other day we played, they're the only team in the league so far to have dressed the same players all season. So that shows you a couple of things, different wavelengths. Number one, their conditioning is off the charts. But number two, they're kind of getting more fortunate on the injury basis of it because they're not losing any guys. So at some point, you imagine that's going to happen, and how are they going to fill those voids?
Right.
They're going to. But yeah, the Winnipeg Jets are off to a hot start. Even moving on from that, big news out of Calgary, Mantha's out for the year. Anthony Mantha's out towards ACL and having surgery. Big blow for them because he just signed a 1-year deal with them after last season, playing in Vegas at the end of it. And now he is out for the year. That's a team that's kind of been struggling a little bit, but still trying to find their groove, and hope the best wishes for him and see what happens for him next year.
I meant to put this down, the Ovi watch. I can't remember.
Yeah, he's at 32 left till he breaks the record. So you imagine early next year it's going to happen. He's been on a tear.
He'd have to be a 50-goal scorer to make it.
He's been on a tear. He's looked really good so far this year, and it's going to happen. I think next season, though, but as a hockey fan, you can't not feel happy for him. That's history we're going to witness here soon. Yep. And it'd be even more perfect if they would still have those Screaming Eagle jerseys and he did it in that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Oh, but that's
they do
going to
look
be
good,
a stick puck jersey that's going to the Hockey Hall of Fame when that happens.
Former Wings and Oilers general manager Ken Holland was named special consultant to the NHL's hockey operations department. That was announced earlier. As Carson had mentioned at the top of the show, the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame inducted their class of 2024. In that class, Shea Weber, former Predator and Montreal Canadian, he was a part of the big deal.
PK
Subban. Pavel Datsyuk, one of the best players to ever play for Detroit. Jeremy Roenick, JR, a great guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him on a number of occasions when he was in Phoenix, but he better known for his days with the Chicago Blackhawks. A couple of women from the University of Minnesota and the U.S. women's hockey team, Natalie DeWartz and Chrissy Wendell-Pole, were inducted. Colin Campbell, who is a former Edmonton Oilers player but has been really big in the NHL, he was really big in the league rules and the discipline part of the NHL, at the time was the youngest GM ever. Former Capitals GM David Pauly, they were all inducted into the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame, and that's bucket list thing is to go
to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
To go for us as fans to go see the NHL, the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto.
But good for those guys. I mean, all of them deserve it.
Yep.
They're all great players and great in their own aspects for what they do for the sport and the league. And it's exciting to see that kind of stuff and see people get recognized. Much deserving for all those players and staff, coaches, whatever they all are in general. Great to see that. Just a busy week.
A good friend of mine, Deb Comfort, is joining us live, and it brings up it's almost about this time in 1986 that Deb was a part of the managerial team of the high school football team that I played for, the Wetaskiwin Composite High School Sabres. We won the league championship, which was 38 years ago this month. Deb is watching us tonight. So hi, Deb. And
hello, Deb. Thank you for
happy
watching.
36th anniversary. 38th anniversary. Sorry, I can't do math of that championship of 1986. You know what? This has been a great show, and I think it was needed that you needed to get out here and rant because it was so funny because I watched Carson's post-game stuff, and he says, well, it was the Islander game, and I had done one, but I thought I better not do it. I better do it a little bit more professionally.
Yeah, I mean, it's, an immediate reaction after losing is like not happy. I mean, anybody knows it from whatever sports you watch. You're not happy. You're not excited. But I owe the commitment to myself and to put those videos out. Yesterday was probably the most upset I've been in one, but even then it wasn't that bad. But yeah, I definitely needed to let off some steam after that one. I'm hoping that some things happen and change just to give this team a chance. But so that's the hardest part about being a fan is you can't do anything but just watch.
Right.
You can't make any of the changes. You have to just hope that they do, and we'll see what happens. But still got to support them and still hope that they make it in. And they got a shot with. You still got some of the best players in the world on your team. You still got an opportunity. You always have an opportunity, and there's still plenty of games left, but not bright.
Yeah,
not bright.
But it's going to get better, and so we want to wrap things up here tonight. Again, you can catch us on Facebook Live every Tuesday night for the next few weeks. It's going to be at 6 p.m.
Yeah, until the end of the month. I think.
Until the end of the month, and then you can get us the Refocused Radio Network with Shemaiah Reed. Our podcast, the video part of it from YouTube, will be available tomorrow. You can get us on Spreaker.com tomorrow. It's the Best Boys Center Ice podcast, and as we already just talked about, we do post games for both of our teams on TikTok. You can catch us over there. So we'll be back next Tuesday, 6 o'clock Central Time, for more of the Best Boys Center Ice podcast. But in the meantime,
and in between time,
everybody, have a great hockey night. That's my son, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, don't break things. He's my son, and I love him, really.